I'm telling you, once you start looking at tracks this way, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And you're going to realize a lot of tracks are just boring. What's up everyone, my name is Rosendo, welcome back to my channel. We are back with another video, and today we're talking about more ideas, we're talking about more concepts. I know it's been a while since my last video, but we're back today, and today we're talking a little bit about arrangement. I know I've said I'm a big fan of arrangement, and that's definitely one of the things I want to talk more about so I can contribute that to the YouTube world and the world of music in general. And I have said that there's no shortage of thoughts in my head for me to make videos about. So that's what we're doing today. Today we're going to talk about something I hear in a lot of tracks that it's just something that to me, I take it as a given. I take it as something that I analyze tracks based off of, but I don't know if anyone else analyzes tracks this way. I don't know if anyone else has ever talked about it. And again, at the very least, I want to take this idea that's in my head, plant it in your guys' head. And if you guys like it, if you guys also want to start looking at tracks this way, you can. If you don't like it, you don't have to. But again, this is just me sharing my ideas, my perspectives to hopefully try to make the music, the EDM world and music in general, a better place, allow for people to get a little bit more creative and put a little bit more thought and intention into their music. So today we're going to be talking about extended mixes. For those of you who don't know, an extended mix is a track with a dedicated intro and outro section meant for DJs to mix, so it's easier for people to mix. And this is very common in a lot of EDM tracks, especially those available for purchase through big stores like Beatport, because people who buy these tracks most likely plan to use them in their sets. Maybe they can make mashups off them or something, but extended mixes are very, very common so that it's easier to use those tracks in people's sets. But it definitely makes things easier, especially if a song starts straight with the vocals or starts a little bit more atmospheric. Extended mixes make it really, really easy to mix into sets. So today we're talking about arranging. What are we talking about in extended mixes? Now, to be clear, this does not only apply to extended mixes. There are a lot of tracks out there, even original mixes, that have intro and outro sections that this still applies to, but this definitely applies to extended mixes as well. Really, this just applies to any track with an intro and outro section. Now, today we're going to talk about something that I think is a big mistake, something that I hear in a lot of tracks, something that I really think producers and artists should try to avoid because it just kind of kills the progression of your track. It takes that journey you really want to build and just throws it out the window. Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about how a lot of tracks, especially extended mixes, will have intros and outros that sound exactly the same. Now, again, I'm not a fan of that. Again, you guys don't have to agree. You guys are welcome to have your own opinions, but hopefully if you're here, you're just trying to learn a little bit more about ideas and concepts and tracks and songwriting and arrangement in general, so you can kind of gauge what you like, what you don't like, what you want to look for in tracks, and you start having an idea of what you think makes a track good, what makes a track enjoyable. Now, one thing I see in a lot of tracks is, especially in extended mixes where they kind of build a track that doesn't really have an intro or outro section, and they kind of force themselves to add one, is they'll just take an intro, slap it in the beginning, slap it in the end, and have the exact same intro. The reason I think this is a mistake is because, well, in my opinion, songs are a journey. Songs really should be taking the listener on a journey. They should have an intro, they should progress, they should achieve something, they should accomplish something, they should take you on a path somewhere, and it should start somewhere fixed and it should end somewhere fixed. And what ends up happening is if your intro sounds a certain way, and then you reach the heart of your track, you develop your track, let's say you do something beautiful, you have some great progression to it, and your outro also sounds the exact same way, it's almost like you took that journey and you just kind of reset it and started it again, and it really interrupts the flow and the journey of your track. Now again, I'm saying this from an artistic standpoint, from tracks that are meant to be a journey, from tracks that are trying to accomplish something a little bit more complex. When it comes to regular tracks that you're just making for listeners to listen to and dance to and whatever, yes, it doesn't apply, but I still think there's a lot of room for improvement. So again, from an artistic standpoint, if you're making an extended mix, or if your track has an intro and outro, particularly one with drums, then it might be a good idea to try to avoid having the intro and the outro be exactly the same, especially if it's a long track, especially if it's something a little bit more emotional. I'm talking a lot about trance and progressive and things, and melodic house and things like that right now, especially if your tracks fall under that umbrella. It's very, very important that your track is complex, it has a good journey, it has a good story being told. And when the outro sounds exactly the same as the intro, it kind of just interrupts that story and takes you back to the beginning, when you don't really want that. You want it to have a nice beginning, a nice climax, and a nice end to really fulfill the needs of your track. So again, it's this one small thing that I think a lot of tracks should avoid. If you want to do it with intention, if you have your reasons for why you want your intro and outro to be the same, knock yourself out. But again, I think a lot of tracks do this, and a lot of tracks shouldn't do this because you want your track to be seen as a journey. If not, do whatever you want. But if you want something a little bit more complex, something a little bit more significant, where you really want some nice development over the course of the track, try to avoid making your outro and intro exactly the same. All right, with that being said, we're going to go to a few examples. We're going to go through one really popular song right now that I really, really like that does make this mistake. And then we're going to go through two of my tracks that do have different intros and outros, so you can kind of see what the difference is and you can kind of get an idea of why it might matter, if it matters to you. So without further ado, let's hop into Spotify. All right, we are in Spotify, taking a look at one of my favorite tracks right now, Quicksand by Above and Beyond. I absolutely love Above and Beyond. To this day, it's probably one of my favorite sets that I've seen live. I think I saw them in 2023 or 2022 at Project Glow in Washington, D.C. I absolutely love this track. Now, that doesn't mean I can't critique it. And I know this is one of those things where I'm just a producer with 2 followers that's critiquing a very, very, very successful producer. But I still think that we can learn a little bit. We can learn about concepts. We can learn about things. And you are more than welcome to disagree with this video. Again, I'm just trying to provide perspectives here. I'm just trying to provide ways you can start thinking about things. I'm just trying to provide different ideas and different ways that you might start thinking about your tracks to see what you like and what you don't like, and to see what you want to implement in your tracks. So again, we're looking at Quicksand by Above and Beyond, March 21st, 2025, pretty recent track. But let's take a listen to this track. So let's compare the intro and the outro of this track. I'm just going to play a few seconds because, again, I do not own the rights to the song. But let's compare the intro and the outro starting at about 48 seconds here, where we have something that sounds like this. So kick, bass, a few effects, and again, a few vocals kind of here and there in the atmosphere. Let's listen to the outro. Let's go about 440 here. Notice how the intro and the outro of this track are exactly the same. To be clear, there might be a few different effects, there might be differences in the atmosphere, there might be some minor differences. I think the vocals have some minor differences to them actually, but for the most part, the rhythm is the same, the patterns are the same. You're pretty much getting the exact same feeling out of both. And I absolutely love this track, but I do think that kind of puts a damper in the journey of this track because Above and Beyond is such an amazing artist. It makes such nice tracks. This is a 5-minute, 26-second extended mix here. And again, the key is that this is an extended mix, not an original mix, but there are original mixes that do this. But I do think this track could have had a little bit more room for progression, development, and more of a journey if the intros and the outros had not been the same. Other than that, I absolutely love this track, but that's just something you can think about, and this applies to a lot of other tracks as well. Now let's go to one of my tracks now, something that I do own the rights to, so we can really listen to everything. Let's go to Understanding, my first trance track. We're going to be comparing the intro and the outro of this track out on Spotify, available on all platforms as well, because when you start this track, it starts like this. You get the kick, you get that bass pattern, you get a little bit of noise as well. It progresses, kick, clap, a few synths right there. You hear that little bass fill, that fill right there. And then you kind of really get into the heart of the intro. What happens when we go to the outro? Should be right around here. You actually get a completely different bass line. You still have some fills, and I do some nice things over here where I kind of switch that pluck and I change the notes instead of just having the tonic of the track. You switch the note up a little bit. But the bass line is entirely different, and I think it really, really contributes to the journey of the track, where in the beginning you have something like this. You hear that bass line? It's kind of that bass pluck you get right there. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. Over here, you just get the trance rolling bass line. You hear that? It's that rolling bass line that you get with a kick, which is actually the same bass line you get in the drop. But again, simple thing that just really keeps the journey alive, keeps the progression alive, and it makes it feel like you have an intro, you reach the drop, the outro keeps that same bass line, and it slowly fades away. Things like that, I think, make a big difference. All right, and let's compare one more track. Here we have an unreleased track that I am not going to play for you guys yet, but I think this absolutely applies to this track. This is something I thought a lot about when making this track, and hopefully this will be out in mid-September, depending on a number of factors. But let's take a listen to this track that is currently an ID work in progress, almost done, by the way, but I'll give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek of what the intro and outro sounds like, because the intro sounds like this. Another trance track, by the way. Drums, hi-hats. Let's jump forward a little bit. This is really the intro of the track. You get a kick, you get a little bit of a mid bass, and you get the sub in spurts. Just like that. A few effects, clap comes in right here, while this hi-hat loop is playing the entire time. What do we get in the outro? Let's go right here. Hi-hat is gone, and we just get the sub. Get a little bit of reverses there, but it really kind of brings the track to an end in a nice way, especially in the context of the track. I'm going to play a little bit more of the track, where we have the kind of the first 8 bars. The next 8 bars, you get a little bit more right here, and a little bit more, and then we won't bore you with this part right here. Actually, we will. Well, you guys get a little bit more of a teaser. Just for you guys, just for YouTube. Huh. This is the intro of the track. Now, when we go to the outro right after the drop, similar, we get some pads, we get a few more things. We should, right here, let's compare. So the bass line is a little bit more alive. You get the pads that kind of give it a little bit more of an ambience, a few more effects over there. And what ends up happening is when you get kind of this as your outro, that does sound distinct to the intro. And then you kind of bring it back down over here. It gives it more closure. Versus if I went straight from something that sounded like this to something that sounded like this. It just wouldn't be the same. It just would sound a little bit too similar. Let's just say I went from the outro that sounded like this to over here. Again, it just brings you back to the beginning of the track, and that's not what we want. We want the track to be a journey. We want the track to have a clear beginning, a middle, a climax, and an end. But not only an end, an outro that brings you to a little bit of closure that kind of feels like you're ending the track. Instead of going somewhere that sounds exactly what you got in the beginning, kind of takes this nice journey that you're meant to be building up. It takes this journey it's really beautiful journey that you can have in your track. It builds it up. It gets some really nice development, and then it just kind of brings you right back to the start where you started. And I just think it sounds very weird. I think it interrupts things in a not nice way. And I think tracks can be a lot better if the outro does not sound the same as the intro. But anyways, that's enough about that. Again, this is just a perspective. I make these videos so you guys can have more perspectives available to you, so you guys can have more ideas, you guys can have more thoughts behind your tracks. If this is something you want to try out, go for it. If it's something you don't want to try out, don't do it. This is just for informational purposes, so we can all kind of get more exposure to different ideas in music arrangement, different ideas in music production, and start getting an idea of the types of things that we want to include in our tracks. This is something that I like to include in my tracks, and maybe this might be something that you will like to start including in your tracks. But other than that, that is all I have for you. Let me know if you guys have any questions or comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Let me know what tracks you guys like that do this. Let me know what tracks you guys like that don't do this. Tracks that you say, you know what, I like this track, but the intro and the outro are the same. Or you know what, I like this track and the intro and outro are not the same, and I like it for that. It makes it better. Or let me know if there are any tracks that you really like where the intro and outro are the same and you actually think it contributes more to that track. Let me know how you guys like to do your intros and outros. Again, I want this channel to be a place of discussion, a place where we can discuss different ideas and perspectives. So anything you guys want to contribute to this video in the comment section so we can all discuss, leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But other than that, that is all I have for you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.